and tells court. Some of these marital cases, stories. Okay, let's take some entertainment stories this morning. Still on the Saturday Tribune. On the entertainment page, Grammy announces 5 new categories ahead of 2027 award. Guinness World Record honors a leader, Bassi, as icon for global record-breaking moment. All right, DJ will be to host Headies 18th edition pre-party in Lagos. Team to shine at 2026 Bet Awards with historic performance nomination. Josh Shekpo grosses 128 million naira at Nigerian box office. On the societal gist page, out of banking, Jim Ovia finds another love. Around the Future Award Africa holds 20th anniversary edition. Why Magaji Adanla dedicated Albasa Foundation Award to the Olubadan. Writer friends to immortalize twice as nice boss, Wahid Shonibare with foundation. All right, people's whose birthday was okay, it's today. You have the likes of, wow, on the same day. Wow, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Babatunde Fashola, Wale Tinumbu, Henry Ode. Wow. Okay, same set of people. All right, weekend Lagos. Lagosians lament high cost of cooking gas. For now, it's bye-bye to beans and other food that takes hours to cook. Okay. Let's take some of the stories on the Achievers page. To be extraordinary, you have to do extra work ordinary person isn't willing to do. That's coming from Joy Osesami, OAU Geology first class graduate. That story is there. All right, let's quickly go on this break. And when we come back, we'll take more stories from the Saturday Tribune newspaper. Do stay with us, don't go away.
Members,
Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. On page 19, you have the story there. You see black spot in the food, and the women running the mill quickly remove them. Fabricated grinding machine as everyday silent risk. You want to know about that. All right, and then we'll go to other stories. Come to the exquisite food page. Sponge pudding, the tender oven-free cake. Okay, UK law enforcement destroyed my reputation and integrity. Desiani Alison Madwike tells BBC. Oh, okay. All right, they started shooting at us when they heard the sound of a motorcycle. All right, one of the mother of the abducted children at the community high school, CNA, Orire local government. All right, I'll quickly go to sports stories for this morning. Hendrick will play at right time. That's coming from Atletico. World Cup, Mexico land in knockout stages. Arsenal to begin EPL title defense against country. Musho Ajayi, others set for Gaslow 2026 trial. Oseme still on Man United wish list. That's according to report. Right, and on the back page, Hashim faces trial for rape. Those are the stories from the Saturday Tribune. Over to you, Fumbi.
Thank you very much, Jadisola. This morning I have the Nation newspaper with me. On the front page, we have stories on pages 4, 5, and 26. It says APC, ADC, PDP test strength in Ekiti governorship election. And the rider says drama at INEC as security agent ejects PDP candidates. INEC polls will be transparent, credible. Rivers, Nasarawa, Enugu, Ondo elect new senators in by-election. All stories there. Moving on to page 6, Abdul Salami warns against politicization of insecurity, calls for unity in fight against banditry. Scandal rocks multi-billion naira flood relief funds in Niger, and that story is on page 11. Arrest of pastor with 75 wives, tears church apart, and that story is on page 13. The writer says
the church members just woke up. They just woke up to see that.
How he allegedly maneuvered members to surrender spouses. Investigation ongoing, says Homeland Security outfit. Yes, the picture of the pastor is also there, and that story is on page 13. Let's not dwell so much on that because of our time. Moving on to page 2. Pre-admission test on mask father's abuse, HIV infection of daughter. That's so unfortunate. And on page 3, we have ex-NYSC DG Siga recalls ordeal in bandits' den. Alleges public officers supply arms, ammunition to terrorists. Mother, sister of slain bandits leader, jailed 20 years for aiding terrorism. And that story is on page 2. And lastly, on the front page of the Nation newspaper, Awujale secession crisis deepens as Afobaje Council rejects Olisa's claims. And that story is on page 3. And let's take one sport story. Okoye thrilled by interest from Bundesliga. And there's a question here. Where are the Super Eagles? That's all we have on the Nation newspaper this morning. Yes, right now we'll be going over 2 governors' activities through the course of the week. And when we return, we'll give you other activities we have for you on the show this morning. So please do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Members of the newly inaugurated Oyo State Climate Change Council include the Commissioner for Environment and Natural Resources, Engineer Demola Adenito, who serves as the Vice Chairman, alongside other State Commissioner, representatives of the private sector, non-governmental organizations, civil society group, and the academia. In his address, the Chairman of the Council, Governor Seyi Makinde, said the inauguration of the Council reflects the state's commitment to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 13, SDG 13, which advocates urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. The governor noted that although climate change is a global challenge, Oyo State is not immune to its effect. He emphasized that his administration remains committed to implementing measures aimed at mitigating the impact of climate change on residents and promoting environmental sustainability across the state.
We know that climate change has made our weather, especially rainfall patterns, unpredictable, which has direct impact on food security, and we're all experiencing the extreme weather conditions, especially also excessive heat sometimes. So we have to we have our work cut out to decide and implement measures which will address some of these issues.
Earlier in his remarks, the Vice Chairman of the Council and Commissioner for Environment and Natural Resources, Engineer Demola Adenito, said the Oyo State Council on Climate Change is more than a ceremonial body. He described it as a multi-stakeholder platform charged with defining clear objectives, setting achievable targets, and developing a comprehensive framework to guide climate policy, mitigation, adaptation, and resilience strategies in the state.
We also stand to enjoy a whole lot of benefits, particularly the council is going to help to drive our carbon system, our carbon effect, where we're able to earn carbon credits through carbon mitigation and emissions mitigation. The credits will earn us grants supports, and even investments of multinationals will be attracted into our state. Some of these things are part of what we expect when this council is inaugurated today by His Excellency. We're also going to use this council to initiate the work being done currently on a climate action policy document, which we just received.
Engineer Director emphasized that the reality of climate change is no longer a distant threat, but a present and growing challenge affecting ecosystem, livelihoods, public health, and critical infrastructure. He stressed the need for collective action and strategic planning to address its impact and safeguard the future for the state.
Mrs. Adeleke Ayobami Fashion, PhD,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will be faithful
and
bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria
and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The newly appointed head of service, Dr. Adenike Fashino, and two new commissioners, Dr. Idowu Oyeleke and Barrister Ayobami Ojo, took the oath of office and allegiance administered by the Permanent Secretary, Cabinet and Services. In his address, Governor Makinde stated that the appointments were guided by the principle of merit, inclusivity, and equitable representation, describing the appointment as a call to greater service and responsibility. The governor urged the new appointees to contribute their quota towards ensuring that his administration continues to deliver on its promises to the people of Oyo State until the expiration of its tenure.
This is the 19th head of service since Oyo State was created in 1976. The new head of service is the 7th female HOS. The third in quick succession, because I met Mrs. Adwala, appointed as head of service. I appointed Mrs. Loni, and then I appointed as. This means Oyo State has fulfilled more than the 35% Beijing Declaration of appointment.
Governor Makinde also used the occasion to announce a cabinet reshuffle. According to him, the former Commissioner for Special Duties, Alhaja Fausat Jokesani, has been redeployed to the Ministry of Investment, Trade, Cooperatives and Industry, while Dr. Idowu Oyeleke has been assigned to Ministry of Special Duties. Governor Makinde further announced that Barrister Ayobami Ojo will oversee the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning. Speaking on security, the governor expressed concern over the recent abduction of students and teachers in Orire local government area and assured residents that the state government will continue to work closely with security agencies to secure the release of the victims and strengthen security across the state.
During my short tenancy here as the governor of Oyo State, a critical zone of Oyo State, the Barapa, has moved from no representation at the permanent secretaryship position to being the head of service. But my promise to the good people of Oyo State is that we will serve them, we will work for them until the last moment of our last day in office.
While appealing to residents to remain vigilant and promptly report suspicious activities in their communities through the toll-free emergency number 615, Governor Makinde emphasized that collective efforts are essential to preventing criminal activities and safeguarding lives and property. A group of protesters led by activist and social commentator Martins Vincent Ose, popularly known as Very Dark Man, VDM, visited the private Ikolaba residence of Oyo State Governor, Engineer Seyi Makinde. The protesters converged on the governor's residence to express their concerns and demand urgent action over the abduction of teachers and students in Orire local government area of the state. responding to the concerns raised by the protesters over the abduction of the students and teachers in Orire. Oyo State Governor, Engineer Seyi Makinde, stated that security architecture currently deployed for the rescue operation is capable of securing the safe release of the victims with minimal casualties. Governor Makinde disclosed that based on available intelligence, no additional casualty has been recorded among the abductees following the killing of the mathematics teacher.
If government starts negotiating with bandits, it means we're surrendering sovereignty to the bandits. But in this special situation, we want those children alive. We have to bend backwards. Once the children are out, I give you the assurance that they will not occur again.
Speaking on behalf of the protesters, activist and social commentator Very Dark Man expressed concern over the fate of the abducted students and teachers in Orire local government. He said the group was prepared to support security agencies in efforts to rescue the victims, stressing that residents have become increasingly worried due to the lack of information on the condition of the children. He therefore called on the state government to always provide clear information on the ongoing rescue effort and the plans being put in place to secure the safe return of the abducted students and teachers.
The home is under attack, but not for long, because Hypo is here. Dirty floors and surfaces.
Not on our watch.
Dirty and stains no fit do us shakara. We got the remedy, original palasa. Hypo, go hypo.
Germs always find a way back.
No greed. Protect every day with Hypo.
Home. It's shared moments lived in the now.
Home. It's when concussion rice comes to the rescue when your homies arrive for sports night or girls hangout.
Home is the moment we live and what's in the pots. After all, what's home without food? That's why we say, let's go home.
There's food at home.
All right, welcome back. It's still Saturday special, and we're welcoming you back from the governor's activities. Of course, these are some of the activities that happened during the week with His Excellency the Governor of your state, Engineer Seyi Makinde. Now we're in the interview segment, and we have two, I will use the word gigantic people from the health sector in your state. They're going to be doing justice to the conversation on Ebola virus, demystified, breaking down myths and misconceptions. That's what we're looking at this morning. And of course, we have Dr. Eniola Cadmus. She is an associate professor of community medicine, consultant community, and genetic physician at the University College Hospital, UCH. You're welcome this morning.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
All right, we also have this morning Dr. Akintunde Babatunde. You know the Tunde thing, like Rami's king. All right, he's the Director of Public Health for your state, Ministry of Health. You're welcome and thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, good morning.
Yeah, let's begin by looking at Ebola virus. Ebola virus, or Ebola disease, they say is severe, often fatal illness in humans. We're told that there are 3 different types of causes, I beg your pardon, to large Ebola disease outbreak. And the average Ebola disease case fatality rate is said to be around 50%. Case fatality rates have varied from 25 to 90% in the past outbreaks. Early intensive supportive care with rehydration and treatment of symptoms improves survival. But we're made to know, And of course, I have seen that Ebola disease or virus is deadly. No two ways about it. In starting the conversation, I'd like to begin, and I'd like you to tell us what Ebola virus is. Let's start from Dr. Kintune. Dr. Kintune, what is Ebola virus? What's the difference between the virus and the disease? Because the stages I want to believe in medicine. Share with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ebola virus is a very severe and life-threatening illness that is often associated with fever, vomiting, headache. Well, you said the other time when you were giving the case fatality rate, yes, it has been documented so. But I believe that if it is responded to very early, the case fatality drops. Yes, disease, when it has manifested, then you have started showing the symptoms. But it is a virus. Basically, we have, when someone is exposed to it, you have a window period of 21 days. Within that period, you cannot transmit it. So that time, it has not manifested to become disease. So that is the stage, that is the distinction between the two. Because if someone is exposed, not until that person starts showing symptoms, the person will not transmit that disease. I'm talking about virus, Ebola virus disease. So that is the clear distinction between the two. So like I said, maybe in the course of the discussion, then we're going to still probably be expanding it further.
Okay. I see Doctor is also itching to say something about that before we actually go into the nitty-gritty of the conversation, talking of Ebola virus. How, maybe you should help us break it down better for our viewers to understand Ebola virus.
All right. The summary you gave was right, and of course his own submission too was right. But you mentioned something about what's the difference between a virus and a disease. What causes the disease is the virus. You can't see it with your eyes, but it's once you get infected, it enters the system and causes havoc. So the virus is what causes, I don't want to use big terms here, but it's the organism that causes the disease. The disease, like doctor said here, is when that organism has started manifesting within the body because it attacks the system, it damages the kidney, damages the liver, affects the blood system, and so it's something that we should talk about and ensure that people know about it.
Okay, let me pick this question with you. There are reported cases of a particular type of Ebola virus in Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes.
And according to reports, as of 17th of June, cumulative of 896 confirmed cases, and we have including 232 deaths recorded. That is not to say that, the numbers have not increased since that date.
Yes.
But now, it seemed to be, we've had Ebola in Nigeria.
Yes.
It was contained after many lives were lost. It was a major outbreak like COVID. And I think Ebola taught us how to handle COVID.
Yes.
It was like a test for us. And that went. Why is it always recurring in places like, DR Congo, or even in Africa? Let's look at the cases as we speak.
So many of these diseases keep on reoccurring because we do not learn from our past mistakes. Take COVID, for instance. Now, where are the buckets? Where are the hand washing facilities? We've forgotten. COVID went and we're like, oh, it has gone. And so we go back to our previous behavior. If you know what causes a disease, then prevention is better than cure. We know that Ebola comes about due to man's close interactions with the nature, with the wild. You know, we know the reservoirs, the carriers of the disease, things like the fruit bats, chimpanzees, gorillas, and we know how we savour our wild meat, erongbe, like people would say. Okay, so at times these diseases are based in animals, but they can cross to humans if we're not careful when handling those animals. And then at times our people can be unscrupulous. You see an animal in the wild that has died, you don't know the cause of the death. In previous times, it was taboo to eat a dead animal if you didn't know what caused the death. But nowadays, God will have to help us. So at times, animals come down with these diseases, and then we, in our interactions with those animals, either while trying to catch it or picking it up when it's dead or processing it. And then you said something, COVID was a huge thing, and we should never forget. We thank God that it has gone, but we should never forget. Well, diseases will always be with us. It now depends on several other mechanisms, be it the host, the environment, and the interaction. We call that the triad. You know, you must have certain conditions and factors to make it. So they'll always be with us. You know, we'll always have diarrheal diseases.
Okay, let's quickly go to Dr. Akintunde. Dr. Akintunde, while Dr. Cadmus was speaking, now she took us back to the causes of Ebola, talking about the chimpanzee, the gorilla, the bats. Now let's look at these animals. Let's try and do a dissection of them. How do they contract in the first instance this disease, and that they now transmit via our own negligence or whatever it is to humans? Let's look at how they got it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think she has started the conversation very well. You see, naturally they are in their natural habitat, but because of human exploration, because of urbanization, because of expansion, you see, human beings go into the forest probably for games and some other activities. By doing so, they have contact with these animals. And studies have shown that most of these infectious disease outbreaks that we do have, about 60 to 70% are zoonotic in origin. That's why most of the outbreaks that we're having, you see the, how will I put it, one earth. You see medical doctors, human health, animal health, and environment, because they know that environment plays a very, very significant role in the cause of these outbreaks. So, like I said initially, so when you go into their natural, habitat, and you want, for one reason or the other, like she said, you kill them, inadvertently, something happened, then you eat them, not properly, boiling or probably, processing them, cooking them, then you can contract it from that.
The question, doctor, is how do the animals themselves?
Okay, the natural, habitat, reservoir, So some of them they serve as a reservoir for this organism. So it's there for them
in their own system.
It's there.
But how do you know? Sometimes even when we kill, does Ebola kill all animals that have been infected? Maybe we should start for them, because sometimes what if you eventually, come across an animal, or like Doctor mentioned earlier, bush meat, and it's been killed, and it's probably infected, not well cooked or properly cooked. Now, does it also have effect? How can it be detected in animals before consuming it? Doctor, I think we should allow Dr. Cadmus go ahead with that question.
Well, like he said, it's One Health. It would have been good to have a vet person here. But the thing is, you can't just by eyeballing see whether an animal is infected. You and I are sitting down now. If we do your blood test, you might see you have malaria, but you're not manifesting. So many times, most of these animals are already coexisting with these organisms on their own. peacefully. And then we now go and interact with them. And what was before, you know, there's some laid down rules. There's some diseases that affect certain species. But then when the species is able to jump from animal to human, which is zoonosis, it becomes a problem because we also have our own share of organisms, you know, and then so all of a sudden your body is confused and unable to process it because it had never been exposed. And so most times it causes a devastation. We would always coexist with diseases, organisms, viruses, bacteria, fungi. But the problem comes when your body is unable to mount up enough immunity to fight it, and then it causes death.
Sorry, I think additionally, just like what she has said, let me just use this scenario. You know, rabies is caused by dog.
Yes.
And it's not manifesting. It's with the,
There is symptomatic.
Yeah, there are. But once probably a man is, you know, beaten, definitely is going to manifest because it's there as there, like I said, reservoir, natural reservoir. So it doesn't have any effect in the, because probably, just like what she has said, first person will have probably dissected that very well. But one thing is, I think probably they have, you know, they have had sufficient immunity within themselves that, you know, make them not to be manifesting.
But allow them
exactly.
live with the virus.
Exactly. But once it leaves, you know, the natural, you know, habitat. Yeah. Once it's moving to manifest.
And then another problem is by the time you now see an animal that is ill, then it's highly infectious. And when you see an animal that is ill, it will be sluggish. Of course, you won't take the temperature, but it would be sluggish. The mucous lining of the eyes will be dim. You know, the vets are good at this. They know when they see an animal during their meat inspection, they'll be like, no, this animal is not fit for consumption.
Okay, I know there are different strains of Ebola.
Yes.
I know when we had the outbreak in 2014,
yes,
there was a particular strain. It's different from what they're currently experiencing in Uganda and DRC. Now, what's the difference between these strains? And which is dead, like it was read out, you know, there's almost 1,000 confirmed cases in DRC now. Uganda is also experiencing its own, although not as much as DRC. But what's the difference between these strains and how deadly is Ebola?
All right. So right now, there are about 6 strains that have been identified that are deadly. They all belong to the same family, okay? But the thing is, there are 3 that have been noted to cause these outbreaks. You have the Ebola virus disease that causes Ebola virus disease, Ebola virus that causes Ebola virus disease. You have the Sudan virus that causes the Sudan virus disease, and then the third one is the chikungunya. Yes, this one. Sorry. Yes. So the thing is, each virus has been named based on when it came up. We've had it as far back as 1976, which is about 50 years ago. Ebola virus was named after the Ebola river. The Sudan virus took place in a village, you know, it manifested first time it took place. So each of these viruses have different properties that make them a bit different, but because they're in the same family, they manifest similarly. And so, unfortunately, it's only Ebola virus that has the vaccines have been developed for, and they are available, and there's some monoclonal antibodies. But the others are still under development, and so that's what makes it a bit better to manage, you know. But by and large, having any outbreak from any of these virus family should be attended to promptly through support of the person that is infected, through infection prevention and control, through active contact tracing, you know. So we're not helpless, but we need to know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And we shouldn't panic. Okay, and we shouldn't stigmatize people that have it, because that's what causes the disease to spread. if you notice that you have some of the symptoms, and maybe we'll have that conversation soon, then report. But people run away. And then some of our practices to encourage the spread of this disease, especially things like our burial practices, washing the dead body, in paying the last respect. In that case, if the person had Ebola or died from Ebola, the fluid from that person is a source of infection. So any secretion from the body can cause infection. The saliva, the tears, blood, even I think I should mention it, semen, can be infected. Any secretion from the body.
I'd like us to, because you mentioned it, and I felt we should go there, look at the history of Ebola virus. According to report, Ebola virus was first identified, just like you said, in 1976 after an outbreak in what is now DR Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes.
Since then, these viruses have emerged periodically from the unknown animal that carries them and infected people in several African countries. Yes, I just want to take the two lines. But having said that, this is what it looks like by history. It's also from DR Congo. Now that takes me to the way we manage our animals. As big as many forests are, don't you think that with this current situation, this to you, Dr. Kitude, don't you think that with the current situation of recurring Ebola virus or some of these deadly virus, don't you think that we should pay more attention to some of these animals? Should we not have a department, owned by government that will look after some of these animals, check them where, because you see the way the Americans, the British, they handle some of their animals. They take responsibility for their wildlife. They do a lot of adventure, but it seems like we are not there yet. We're far away. And if we're far, we may just be always close to some of these diseases.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think let me start that from this angle. Then before I go to your question, let me just quickly say what she said the other time concerning the difference between, she has rightly pointed out. I think for the current outbreak now, Budimbuyo, that is the variant, of Ebola virus that's causing it. It has been documented that it doesn't have, higher case fatality compared to, Zaire.
The previous ones.
Previous ones. But because that was detected very late, it has made to, move around. So before it was declared that they've been confronted with such a, Then concerning case fatality, for that, I think she gave us range of 50% and above, but for this one is around 25% and no specific vaccine. The other one, they have, reduced vaccine towards that, but this one, the one that caused the current outbreak, there's no specific vaccine as well. Then, back to what you have said. Yes, I think we had there is this TWG for 1/8 that we had, in which we were there all together.
What's TWG?
Technical Working Group for Ebola. If you have any infectious disease outbreak, there must be a TWG for it, of which we have formed one at our Public Health Emergency Operations Center, where we have discussed what you have just raised, especially how to handle our animals. Luckily enough, people from Ministry of Agric, they were there. We have a veterinarian that was there, and he suggested very copiously that I think we need to talk to our people in the society, that especially, I gave example of rabies the other time, whereby people will not bring their, animals for vaccination. When you see that this animal can cause so disease, that there is vaccine for that kind of disease that such animal may manifest. I think it is incumbent on such people, an individual, to come forward. Then, for government, let me say they have been doing everything humanly possible, especially from the Ministry of Agric, to educate the farmers, the animal owners on what to do, especially to limit the contact, that is between animal and human. So now that is very, very important, and that message has been. Then again, surveillance is very key there, because what we are talking about, because that's exactly what led to the widespread for the DRC, because the surveillance was not there initially, and that was the reason why we recorded a lot of confirmed cases and deaths there. So I think within our environment, surveillance activities has to be heightened, so that at least we detect and we pick it. And there is this that I think is a global health security. There is this matrix, we call it 717. Within 7 days, we should be able to detect if an infectious disease outbreak, occurs. And within 24 hours, which is 1 day, we should be able to notify the, health authority. And within 7 days, then we should be able to respond. So any country that does that, operate within the acceptable limit that is being recommended by WHO. And I think for us in Nigeria, especially that case of Ebola, we acted within that framework. So what I'm saying in essence is that government is trying, and don't let me deceive you, Nigeria is doing excellently well. Don't let me, especially in handling, take for instance the issue of Ebola, that we are able to, even COVID in Oyo State here, while other states were locking down, Oyo State didn't lock down the city because, of the information that have been passed across to our people, and they are there very strictly with those information. So by and large, I think governments in doing, well, I'm not saying that is enough. We continue to educate our people. That is what we call RCCE, risk communication and community engagement. That's exactly what we have been doing to alert people. And let me give you an instance. When Lassa outbreak happened in one of the communities in Okeogun, we went there. The Honorable Commissioner directed us to go there. And what did we do is only community engagement and passing across correct information. That was a very strong, instrument that we used to ensure that, things went there. So by and large, I think government is trying to do the needful to ensure that there is, demarcation between the animal and human.
Thank you very much, Dr. Babatunde, for that submission, especially talking of what the state government is doing. I would have wanted us to talk more of, the causes, the symptoms, and all before talking of. But now that we're already having this conversation, before we talk about the federal government, now you said you've been taking the conversation to people, and of course we also know that we need more awareness on Ebola virus when we have to talk about the communities, the rural communities. But how well do you think people have people's understanding? How do you think people understand Ebola virus so far, based on your interaction with people about this virus, and how you've taken this conversation to those communities? Do you really think people understand this virus? Yes, we know we do not have it yet in Nigeria, but we are taking all preventive measures, against it. But so far, how has people's perception about it been?
Yeah, thank you. Not completely so. Yes, I will say this, because when the trigger, was received because of the what happened in DRC and Uganda, that made the NCDC to send a directive that all POC, Public Health Emergency Operation Centers, should be activated. And immediately we did so. So that is where we had, I'm giving you the scenario that led to how we engage with the communities. So when EOC, Incident Management System, was activated, then we have several pillars under that IMS, Incident Management System, in which Honorable Commissioner made the Director of Public Health to be the incident manager that controls all the pillars. Then we have a coordination pillar, we have a surveillance pillar, we have port of entry pillar, which is very important here, and I'm coming down there. Then we have IPC pillar, infection prevention and control pillar. Then we have a laboratory pillar. So all those pillars, we assigned a team lead for those pillars who will be coordinating those pillars. So now, where it concerns the people at the grassroots is surveillance and pillar. So where they need to transmit the message. And who does that? The state disease surveillance and notification officer, we have also local government disease surveillance and notification officer. So message have been passed across to the local government disease and notification officer. We have trained them. And they have, even apart from that, probably we have received signal. They have been receiving training upon training on how to identify all the priority diseases, in which Ebola is part of those priority diseases. Because we have what we call IDSR, that is formed at the field. We have 01, 02, and 03. So if there's any alert there, those forms will be filled, then we know. Now they engage the community. Let's go back to the community. Now, there are people we call the gatekeepers in the communities, because we have an existing structure within the community, the gatekeepers. And who are these gatekeepers? The traditional rulers, the world development committees, the religious leaders. So we leverage on those gatekeepers to disseminate our information through local government disease surveillance and notification officer. Not only that, even the health workers within the community, so they pass across this message. And what have we done? We have trained them on how to identify, in times of surveillance, we gave them case definition of Ebola. Just like we have said, if you see anybody that has fever, just give us so as to widen the scope. We don't want to put everything there, because if we say fever, vomiting, and other things, we might be missing the case. Just give us anybody that has fever, and probably that person has used what ordinarily they have been using, and it refuses to go. Then that such an individual has to be reported. So those are the things that we do at the community level, and we have told them, and we have been engaging. But because of the, ordinarily our IMS, incident management system, we are on. Before we were on watch mode. Now it has been, transmitted to alert mode. We are in alert mode now. So that message, that conversation, we have transmitted it to our people at the grassroots. Now, though it is not occurring in Nigeria, neither is it occurring in Oyo State. But preparedness is the best form of defense. That's exactly what we are trying to do. So the message is there, but we continue. And let me say this: there is this public health conference that just ended, organized by Faculty of Public Health. I was there. I made a presentation on what, because they told us to come and tell the whole world what we have done in terms of preparedness. Yes, our state government, the executive governor of Oyo State, has approved some certain amount of money to engage in this preparedness in terms of handbills, posters, so that at least people will know what to do. So those are the things that we have done as a state. We have done a lot of things, but maybe in the course of the program.
All right. Let's quickly come to Dr. Cadmus. Doctor, a lot has been said, and you recall that when we were having this interruption, we talked about some symptoms.
Yes.
I need us to look at these symptoms holistically, but let's go on this commercial break. We need to pay some bills. When we come back, we'll look at the symptoms.
All right.
Stay with us, don't go away, we'll be right back.
Oh, God.
Don't read to rearrange his house to give una small wisdom. Shots might be fresh now, but you know, I beg no be so. Make una think I'm twice so. Ever heard of Colgate, the #1 oral care brand in the world?
Colgate Maximum Cavity Protection unlocks 24 hours cavity defense. The formula boost with calcium for lifelong smiles.
Mom, it's a time to brush. No more cover mouth.
Colgate for 24 hours maximum cavity protection.
Welcome back. It's still Saturday special. I will still have our guests in the studio. I want to thank them for staying with us. Dr. Eniola Cadmus, who is an associate professor of community medicine and consultant, community and
Geriatric physician,
UCH. And we also have Dr. Akintunde Babatunde, Director of Public Health, Oyo State Ministry of Health. Thank you for staying with us. All right, let me go back to that question. I was talking about symptoms. We like to look at the symptoms. There is fever and there is fever.
Yes.
There's some fever that you will just be feeling feverish, but there's some you'll be shaking. We need to know the level of, because a lot of people can take fever for granted. People seem to be, you just take some balm, you rub it on your leg, your chest, you take an analgesic, and then you're good. And before you know it, you're keeping Ebola.
Yes.
Before you know it, you're keeping COVID. Lots of, so we need to know.
All right.
So tell us, just let's lay emphasis on some of these symptoms and how severe they can be.
All right. Thank you for that. So the symptoms for Ebola, unfortunately, is close to the symptoms for some of the diseases that are with us, that we call endemic, like malaria is commonplace. Okay, so, and that's why we must be very alert, like Dr. Babatunde said. So for Ebola, you have a constellation of symptoms. You have fever, you can have diarrhea, sore throat, rash, abdominal pain, tiredness, So, but if you were nodding, many of us have this and we're walking about. But then if it's severe and you see, like he said, any fever that most of us would have treated malaria before you even present to the hospital. You treated with this medication, is not going. You treated with that medication, is not going. Then you start having diarrhea and you're getting weak. Please, don't even wait. Please come. Unfortunately, other symptoms, the longer it stays, the more damage would have occurred. And then at times it affects, towards the end, it affects most of our organs. It affects liver, it affects the ability of the body to blood to clot.
That's when it's not properly treated initially.
But it's far gone. It's far gone.
But when it degenerates to that extent where it starts shutting down the system, is there a way out of it? Can it still be treated?
Well, yeah, like she said, two phases. When an individual starts manifesting, what she said, headache, tiredness, muscle pain, bone pain, all those things, that stage, it can still be rectified, remedy. But by this time one starts showing or manifesting, some abdominal symptoms, like diarrhea, vomiting, you're having blood coming out from all the holes. Let me just, for the understanding of people at home, call it craniofacial orifices. From here, nose, eyes, you are passing feces and blood is there, all those things. It has, that person almost gone at that stage, almost gone.
But doctor, now here is where it gets a little confusing. Like you said, it shows the symptoms of most of these endemic disease that live with us. Now, in a situation where you're treating malaria, or you're treating maybe just ordinary fever in quotes, now, how do you know when it gets... sometimes you treat malaria and you feel like, oh, 1 week after, I'm all right, I'm good. But the next 2 or 3 weeks after, you're showing another symptom. Now, at that point, has it not started degenerating? Is that how it works? Talking of the degeneration. And at that point also, can there be an intervention?
So I think we should move away from self-management. If you're ill, we have public health facilities. Most of our people don't go to the hospital. You just go somewhere, dispense drugs and use. Because if you have malaria, you can do a rapid diagnosis test and they'll know that what we're treating for sure is malaria. And so if of course, I'm not saying it can't coexist with the Ebola disease, but then if you are being managed properly in a healthcare setting, and when the healthcare physician or the physician, I mean, it's not only doctors here, they have a high index of suspicion. By the time you see fever, sore throat, abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, is no longer business as usual. Most times, our healthcare practitioners have been trained to have a high index of suspicion, especially with what's going on worldwide. And so, time is ticking. The high index of suspicion cannot be overemphasized, So if you have good health-seeking behavior, and you present early, you have no business getting to that terminal stage before somebody knows. So if we do the test...
Let me just add this. Yes, thank you so much, Doc. I think the giveaway here is to be able to differentiate whether, it's caused, the fever is caused by malaria or otherwise. You associate that with a proper history taking, travel history.
Okay. Yes.
Travel history. Those are the things that we normally do on the field. When you see that this fever is persistent, you divide every other medication that you have given, in relation to malaria. Then you ask the person, did you travel to any of these, cities where we are having manifestation of this disease? Let me give you an instance. In the GV, we had a case of Lassa outbreak in your hospital, not quite long. Yes. You know where the person came from? It's because everybody has started, treating. Nobody, looked at that direction. Later, we got to know that the person came from, Edo State. And Lassa is endemic there. Lassa is endemic there. So if anybody comes to my hospital, manifesting, fever and some other things, devoid of all those things, I will first ask, where did you come from? If the person tells me that he's from Edo, definitely, my mind will go straight to, case of Lassa. That's exactly what we are talking about. If anybody says that he just came from DR, Congo, or probably Uganda, then our line of management will be tailoring towards.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think we should have moved a step further, honestly. With the way some of these endemic diseases are going, one would have thought that in hospitals, we should have gotten to a point where, while you're taking vital signs, find out where the person has been in the last few weeks, last few months.
Yes, it's routine. I've
been to hospitals recently, and nobody's concerned about where I have been in the last 6 months.
Let me tell you the gold standard. You're supposed to ask presenting complaints, and you're supposed to take a history of presenting complaints. And part of that history is, how did it start? When did it start? What other symptoms have been going on? What medication have you used? Your social history, your travel history.
No, doctor,
that's the gold standard. Now, yes, whether people do it conscientiously.
Not even at the point where I am meeting the doctor.
All right.
I would have saved us a lot of stress if at the point where you are taking my vital signs and you find out it's just an information you want to impute. Once you see the symptoms that I've come up with, or you take my vital signs and it shows that my temperature is quite high,
yes,
my BP, if it's normal or not, if it has nothing to do with it, and then you ask me, okay, so where are you in the last 6 months? Where have you been? At that point, would have done a lot. Would have saved even the doctor of having interaction. More people, because once the first person you are meeting is the person who takes your vital sign. Close interaction.
Yes.
You've had close interaction with those you're sitting with, because it's not written on the forehead. So you don't know who has one virus or infection or the other. But would have saved ourselves a lot by restricting some, as people, by way of getting information ahead. Even before, now in most hospitals they do digital, apart from government hospital. By the time the input is there and it's being sent to the doctor sees and says, oh, this location in the last 6 months, this condition or symptom as we speak, immediately that person will be treated the way it should be, rather than just exposing the doctor himself, because the doctor may not use a nose mask.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know if you get the point.
Can I say something?
Please go ahead.
All right. In the hospital, everybody has their job description.
True.
If the nurse or a hospital assistant is supposed to take the temperature, that's not the individual that will be clerking. Do you understand? So if we start deviating from our usual standards of operating procedure, there will be chaos. It's not everybody that goes to Edo that has Lassa fever.
We don't want to. Now we are having an unusual situation.
It's always with us. It's always with us. This is not a conversation about panicking.
This is not supposed to be a general routine.
This is not.
Now we talked about Edo case.
This is not a conversation about panicking. And Edo, now that you're talking about, it's not everybody. It's like saying, oh, HIV is with us and everybody should.
Maybe, Doctor, you're not getting the point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
This can be put in at the time we need to raise alarm over a current case.
Yes.
Remember during even COVID, look at the guy who brought in COVID to Nigeria.
Yes.
Look at how many places he went to.
Yes.
He was running from one place, and trust me, he may know that he already had COVID from the day one, and maybe trying to run, maybe even some of those places he went to, he may go for traditional medicine to look for a way out. We never can tell. And look at how many people were infected, and that was how that thing moved from Ogun to some other state, from Lagos. Now, that's the point I'm making. So, at the point we have a case of a particular virus in town, can it not be part of the measures we're going to put in place early enough?
The standard measures. We should observe standard infection prevention and control measures. Yes, we should put that. So you see, ideally we should all be wearing face masks, but you know how we all are. Ideally, like you said, somebody in UCH, in some certain clinics, you can't enter without a face mask. You know, so the ideal is prevention. The ideal is to always treat everyone as a potential case. Do what you need to do. I'll use HIV again. We won't stigmatize or ostracize somebody because you have an infection. We will treat you properly using the standards. Ensure you avoid needle pricks, you use personal protective equipment and all. So the standard is to ensure infection prevention and control, face masks, hand washing, the use of protective equipment if need be. But it's not to panic and say, oh, once you're from this place, there is a high index of suspicion. Each patient is treated on an individual, holistic basis. Because you're coming from a particular place does not mean you have that disease. Not everybody.
Okay.
Yes, so you ensure standard practices.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think she has said most of it. I think what you are trying to say the other time is that so that, it's a team. We work together as a team in every sector. But I think where are we, likely, wrap up your submission is this.
Before you wrap up my submission, we need to pay some bills. We need to go on a commercial break. So we'll come back, we'll wrap that part up, and then we'll continue on the conversation. Stay with us.
ọ̀pọ̀ làwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n ń béèrè wípé àjọ wo ní tún jẹ́ Ọ̀yọ́ ETF. Ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ló dá Ọ̀yọ́ ETF sílẹ̀. Àpètàn rẹ̀ sì ni Ọ̀yọ́ State Education Trust Fund. Kí ètò ẹ̀kọ́ kó lè yarantí sí i nípa wíwá àwọn ọ̀nà míì tíjọba omi tuntun yóò ṣe túbọ̀ rí owó pèsè fún ètò ẹ̀kọ́. Ó ń lójúṣe Ọ̀yọ́ ETF jaburata. Ó ń làwọn àṣeyọrí tí Ọ̀yọ́ ETF ti ṣe o. Gbogbo onílé iṣẹ́ ọ̀tọ̀kùlúùlú àtẹ̀yìntẹ́ ọmọ rírì ìjọba omi tuntun tètò ẹ̀kọ́ tó tún jẹ lógún tẹ́ fẹ́ tìjọba lẹ́yìn láti pàṣẹ Ọ̀yọ́ ETF. Ẹ kàn sí 2B ọba Kenzua Crescent Onírèké GRA Ìbàdàn. Ẹ sì lè pe alága Ọ̀yọ́ ETF Barrister Rahman Abiodun Abdulrahim sórí 081 81 94 74 96 tàbí akọ̀wé aláṣẹ Ọ̀yọ́ ETF sí orí 070 69 43 85 19 Ọ̀yọ́ ETF ló kéde.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Yes, we're still talking about Ebola virus demystified, breaking down myth and misconceptions. We will be tilting towards the myth and misconceptions very soon. But before we do that, Doctor, before we went on that break, you were also talking about what Dr. Cadmus mentioned.
Thank you so much. I think what I was trying to say the other time is that, yes, if anybody comes in, like what she said, or, health workers, everybody has their job description. But one thing is that's very sure. At that point, if a patient comes in, the first place that that person will go is to see the medical record officer before even going for the vital sign. There, they put down the address, where you are coming from, all those things. And that can manifest, where the person is probably coming from. Because definitely they will take some level of information from that particular patient at that point before the person goes to meet probably nurses who will be taking vital signs. So that information you are looking for probably could have exactly gotten at that point. Not probably 100%, but some, level of information might have been gotten from it. But let me say this also very quickly. You see, he said something, high level of suspicion. Yes, in this era, in this time, because one must be very, very careful, See, we have what we call event-based surveillance, and we have what we call indicator-based surveillance. Now, this time around, we are dealing with event-based surveillance. How do I mean? Then, one, every rumor, you must investigate it, because you don't know whether it's likely to be, Ebola disease. Then, secondly, if there is probably clustering of illnesses that hitherto, has not been occurring, then you have to, be alert. That's number two. Then number three, unusual deaths within the community. So those are the things. Then again, community alert. Community might say that let me give you an instance. In 2017, when we went for outbreak of yellow fever in Kwara State, nobody knew that it was yellow fever. What we had, that the news brought out is that there is a particular disease killing people. So, and when we were deployed by NCDC to go to Kwara, then we later got that it was yellow fever. You understand what I'm saying? So, in all of this, we need to have high level of, suspicion to know, especially when the outbreak has occurred in our neighboring country. What is it? DRC, Uganda, because of the closeness, just their neighbor. Then Cameroon, people can move from DR Congo to Cameroon, and Cameroon to Nigeria. They can even go by sea, from DRC, Nigeria. So all those things, that's why, if you look at what has happened, NCDC has categorized Nigeria, to be high risk. And Oyo State, as I'm talking to you, they categorize us as being at the medium level risk because of we border Republic of Benin through Shaki West and the Teswaju local government. So those are the things that we are considering.
Doctor, let me come to Dr. Cadmus. Dr. Cadmus, let's quickly look at the myth and misconception of this Ebola virus.
Right. Before we talk about the myth and misconception, before moving away from the symptoms now, I know we said when you feel fever and some certain symptoms, maybe having treated malaria and it doesn't leave, at what point does it get contagious?
Okay,
Dr. Cadmus, please go ahead.
All right, so he's mentioned that there's an incubation period. It spans between 2 to 22 days. During that period, the virus is in the body, manifest as in developing and causing havoc. So that period, it's in the body. But by the time the individual becomes infective, it can be any time within that period or thereafter, But we can't say that, it's today or it's tomorrow, because each individual processes the infection in a different manner. But there is an incubation period of as short as 2 days to 22 days. That's what we have, and it's research-based.
Yeah. In addition to that, yes, I think she has gotten it very correctly. Then I think, like I said the other time, within that incubation period, which can probably it can be 10 days, it could be 5 days, but is within that range, 2 to 21 thereabout. Now, within that period of time, they don't transmit it. They don't. And how will you calculate the incubation period? This is how it goes. Take, for instance, someone that has been confirmed or probably epidemiologically linked. No confirmed case, but that person, had contact with someone that has been confirmed, but they have not done any laboratory investigation for that. But you can assume that that person, is the case. Now, what do I mean? Is that if I have exposure with that person, I will start counting it from that day of exposure to the time I start manifesting symptoms. If that day, if it is today, or probably, let's say today I had contact with that person, until 21 days, so when I start having symptoms, that is my incubation period. At that time, I can't transmit it to anybody. But thereafter, yes, I'm highly infectious. I can transmit it to anybody. So that is how it goes.
Okay. Because of our time, let's quickly go to myths and misconceptions. Let me come back to Dr. Cadmus. What are the myths and misconceptions of Ebola virus disease?
All right. Unlike COVID, Ebola is not airborne. You have to come in contact with body fluids. Saliva, tears, blood, amniotic fluid, maybe they do some samples and everything, and even semen. Okay, so you actually, and there must, for you to come in contact, there must be a breach. If it's on the skin like this, and the skin is not broken, you wash your hands, you sanitize, and you're good. But assuming the skin is broken, or maybe while maybe the patient is restless, and while trying to take blood, you have a splatter, and you're not wearing goggles or you're not wearing face mask, it can enter through the lining of the eye, through the lining of the nose, or your mouth is open, and you're like, madam, and it enters, you're laughing. So our healthcare practitioners are supposed to be equipped, with personal protective. Wear your gloves, wear your face mask, wear your goggles if you know that it's gonna, you can have sprays. So it's not airborne, like, you walked across in the taxi, and no, you have to
use the same spoon.
Well, I don't know if the spoon is laden with saliva, but I don't.
Should also avoid
We
sharing
should.
spoons.
Why would you? We don't normally share spoons, do we? I don't think so.
Family members do.
Well,
but for
spoons, you need.
Yeah, for that one, I don't think it's been, unless that person has probably caught.
Yes.
Yes, abrasion in the mouth, all those things. Without that, just like, if you are having.
But you need a breach in your epithelium, either a sore, a cut, or where you can absorb through your eyes or your nose or your mouth.
Saliva.
Lining, yes.
Okay, Dr. Akintunde, let's quickly look at it. Someone has been tested, maybe after presenting himself or herself, and tested and found to be a carrier, of the virus. What is the next stage? Take us to
yes, carrier. That's a very big word there, because she made mention of probably semen could be, a source of, infection, transmission. Yes, semen. Yeah, studies have been done on that. Even after probably, for us in the field of epidemiology, we lay credence to that, and I will tell you why. Even because that's why you have at times local transmission. After probably it has been treated, outbreak has gone, but someone still has it within that person's semen. So, and it's there for almost 2, 3, 4 months after
up to 12
months. Yeah, after the outbreak has been declared, over. So if that person continues to meet with probably his wife, this and that, then that could be a source of what? Yes, transmission. Then you have another ongoing, outbreak again. But for such an individual, they have prescribed that, if you want to have a kind of intimacy with your spouse, then the protective measures are there for such an individual. Then subsequently, the person
mention them so that we don't assume.
What?
Protective measures.
Like condom, yes, condom. Yeah, barrier method is very, prominent in this way. So until person have several, tests done and being confirmed negative, then the person can start having free ride with his or her spouse.
That's about that. We need to take now. That's for that area. Now let's look at. Someone has been confirmed, like I said.
Okay.
What is the hospital supposed to do? Can the person get the test, start checking treatment, and go back home?
Yes. Now, see, this is how it goes. For us in the state, if someone, is confirmed to be positive, I told you, it's either laboratory confirmed or probably the person has contact with the person that are being confirmed. That is epidemiological linked with the person that comes. So what we normally do is that once we have a suspected case, filling those criteria. So what we now do is that we try as much as possible to put that person in an isolation area. That's exactly what we have told our health workers. Now we have infectious disease, which is Excellency as
Infectious
this
Disease
center at Olodo, which we've had and is there operational. Yes, we have activated it too. Nurses are there, doctors are there, so the laboratory scientists are there. So if the person is suspected to have Ebola disease, so we transport that person, having observed infection prevention and control measures. So the person will go there, then blood sample will be taken. And if blood sample is taken there, it's going to be taken by person who has skill doing that. That's medical laboratory scientist. So if that is done, then we now transport, the sample to the National Reference Laboratory, which is in Lagos by NCDC. That is not done here in Ibadan. The only thing that is done here in Ibadan usage is that of Lassa, and not quite long that we started,
But at that point where you're sending this blood for the sample for tests and all, do you quarantine such person?
Of course, that is what Infectious Disease Center
so you do not allow them to go. But
no.
we know sometimes we have stubborn individuals, patients, who would insist they are not staying. At that point, how do you keep them?
Yes, one thing is, see, that's where communication is very strong. You let them know the risk, and the benefit, risk-benefit analysis. That if you do this, you are going to infect. In fact, some people at times during COVID, unless we tell some people that we confine them within their own household. I remember during COVID, when we were invited, when we went to Lagos, that is February 2020, to face the outbreak, we told them there were some people, because you can't put everybody to infectious disease in Yaba. We have a lot of people there. So what we told them is that, we confine them to their natural environment, their houses, and we told them what to do. So in such instances, when you tell them that if you violate these rules, these are the likely consequences. Nobody wants to die. That is just the plain fact there. So that's where communication tell them, the consequences of your action. So that's exactly what we normally, and don't let me deceive you. Nobody will listen to you telling them that if you do this, you are going to die. Nobody wants to die, even in the face of hardship.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Cadmus, there's also this misconception. It also flew around during COVID, that when you have it once, you won't have it again. Is that true?
Well, I'm not sure about lifelong immunity from Ebola, but I doubt lightning will strike twice. Yeah, most people are not bad people. I'm not sure about lifelong, whether having the disease confers lifelong immunity. I don't think we've gotten to that level of research. I haven't come across it, but that's a very interesting question, and I'll look it up.
All right.
Thank you.
We have the commercial break.
We need to pay some bills again. That's what we need to pay some bills. We'll be right
Always
back.
paying bills.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Home. It's in the welcoming little hands wrapped around you in warm embrace. Ask.
What for lunch, Mommy?
So me and Kuka. It's in the coming from me, Gida. While the foreign, a delicious plate of miyan kuka.
This miyan kuka is very delicious.
All right, thank you very much for staying with us. We're still talking about Ebola virus, the myth and misconceptions. Before we went on that break, Doctor, I was talking about whether if you've had it once, you would not have it again. But of course, you said that's a research for you, to...
It's not for me. I've not come across that
generally
information.
now, yes, to find out. Of course, that's why we're talking about the myth and misconception. So people would understand that if they feel, such symptoms, they need to visit and see their doctors. Also, Jadisola, we were talking about...
Well, we're talking about vaccination. At what point
do you have to get vaccine?
Unlike COVID, that whether you had it or not, you have to take this preventive vaccine to boost your immune system. And then, so tell us, who are those that can take the vaccine? That's one. Is there a vaccine? Who can take the vaccine? At what point? Then the vaccine we have taken for COVID, does it work for Ebola virus? It's no.
So the vaccine, first things first, the vaccine for COVID does not work for Ebola. Each of these viruses, they have their specific, it's like a key and lock. The vaccine locks to a particular designated loci on the virus, Anyway, let's not go there. But each one is specific for disease. So the vaccine for COVID is in our arsenal. It's protecting you on that, but not for Ebola. The present outbreak, unfortunately, the vaccine has not yet been developed. But for those that the vaccines are available for, it's mainly preventive. When you find out that you've identified a case and the case has gone, other people have been exposed, including healthcare workers, family members, people at high risk, those individuals can be vaccinated. And I know Dr. Babatunde wanted to say something.
Yes, you are right. Yes. I think, like she has rightly said, for Sahel variant of the Ebola virus, vaccines have been developed towards that. For this particular variant, Buyo, no specific vaccine for that. I think when should we administer that? Like you said, vaccination is just preventive, to prevent disease from occurring. So that's why you see when people are manifesting diseases, or probably they have already been confirmed that disease, at that point in time, there is no point in vaccinating that person again, because the immunity will have been built based on the introduction of the antigen, that is existing in that person. But for this, now I think when we have an outbreak in a place, and probably an outbreak has been subsided, and there is every likelihood, the propensity for that outbreak to occur again, then you begin to vaccinate, people, not during, when you are having it manifesting during, so you don't, when someone is manifesting, you don't give. So thereafter, then you want to prevent the likelihood of occurrence of such a, disease or infection. So for this present one, there's no vaccine. Yes, no.
But for the previous ones, that there are vaccines. Do we have it readily available in Nigeria?
Yeah, that's.
Even in Oyo State, do we have it in Oyo State?
See, those kind of vaccines, they are, specific. You make a request, but that I don't have that information at my disposal now. But I think you don't have those vaccines, just like just like you are having for, all other
so it's on demand.
Exactly. So based on demand, then
once there's an outbreak, you demand.
Yeah, you exactly.
Now let me quickly take you through this question. The issue of testing. I'm sorry, it seems like we're being a little lackadaisical with testing. If at this point of outbreak, epidemic, and we know what these things are, and they come often, why do we still have to go to Lagos to test? Why don't we have a testing center in every state across the Federation? Is it that we don't have the resources to have a testing center, or we feel that it's not so important that we should have a testing center?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that has to do with the capacity. Initially, I said something about usage. Usage did not test for Lassa initially, not until, the directive came from SCDC National. They have to look at it. Not that usage, cannot test for Lassa. But if at that point in time it did, nobody will make any reference towards whatever comes, or result that comes out from it. But now that the directives have come from the national NCDC that usage is now being accredited, for a Lassa testing. So what I'm saying in essence is that for the Ebola, they have to do a lot. Not that we cannot tell, it took some time before they accredited usage. Now, they have to put some structures in place. They have to,
It's taking long. We have to have done these things. It's part of preparedness. I mean, if we have to wait to have an outbreak, God forbid, and then we start running from pillar, you know what the cost of fuel even looks like now? So it's even much more expensive to start taking one sample or the other, or you keep the life of that person to have as many test samples, and then you take them in bulk. It doesn't make sense.
No, we don't take, in such an instance, we don't take samples in bulk. When you have disease of such magnitude that can cause a lot of havoc, immediately you take a sample from a suspected individual. You take it, and don't let me. The waiting time has even been reduced. Yeah, before waiting time can be probably a week, but these days within 1-2 days you have gotten your result back.
The point I'm making is transporting the sample to Lagos is more expensive because of, if you look at the cost of fuel. If I will drive to Lagos now, I will spend not less than 50,000.
I agree with you.
So how many 50,000 do you want to waste?
I agree with you.
Rather than using the same money to establish a center, accredit a center, let's have it. We have the Oludo Isolation Center. There is a big place. I've been there. We can create a testing center there when everybody can go and test.
You are right. Like I said, it just, now that you have said it, everybody is listening to our conversation. But I can assure you that, very soon, all those things is going to be decentralized.
I think we should start working on it and be faster about it. Now, because of our time.
Yes, I want to just briefly, before I talk about health workers, during COVID, we had first aid. You have to maybe use something, take ginger, garlic, inhalation process and all. Yes, do we have that for Ebola?
Those were also myths during COVID. People would always have remedies that may not be scientific. There are different kinds of remedies. They can be harmful, beneficial, harmless. So all this inhalation and whatever, they were harmless. People were doing it. They were happy doing it. But it didn't affect much the price of fish.
Maybe the joy, maybe the excitement of
so do we have placebo? You are doing do this, and then you happen not to come down with the disease, and then you attribute what you did to the disease, but it's not scientifically based. So for COVID, many people ate garlic, drank ginger,
even salt water,
immersed themselves in all sorts. Those are myths. It's not scientific.
Okay, I want us to talk because of our time now, as we begin to wrap up on this segment this morning. We know health workers are usually the ones at the front line receiving most of these infections from patients.
Yes.
And it feels like we really do not give them much recognition. We really do not, talk about it much in terms of safety of health workers. And I want you to speak to health workers listening to us this morning. How should they begin to prevent themselves? When we go to the hospital, like you said earlier, Dr. Cadmus, they do not even use nose mask. They check your vital signs, they touch you. Sometimes some of these patients have injuries, have cuts. They do not use hand gloves. How should they begin to protect themselves and also protect the patients also?
All right, thank you for that. And I think I'm happy that you mentioned that healthcare workers are actually heroes, on earth. And I'd like to use this opportunity to appeal to us. We know the standards. We know what we're supposed to do in terms of infection prevention and control. If an infective patient is coming in, he won't come with a bell saying, I'm infective, I have Ebola. Please let us always use our personal protective equipment. Let us use our gloves when we're handling patients. Let us use our face masks consistently, constantly, and conscientiously. Okay? Let us also know that while treating everybody with dignity, we also have to protect ourselves, because it takes so long to train us to the capacity we are in, and it will be such a shame not to be able to survive, to continue in this our good work. So please, let's use our personal protective equipment. Let's report any diseases or outbreaks. Let's import even things like needle pricks. We have standards of operating procedures as to how to do this. And of course, we also implore our employers and the government to ensure that these commodities are readily available. You know, at times it's difficult to see a patient dying and you don't have what to use. You know, it's as if they tie your hand to the back and expect you to go to war. No, we are in the war front fighting infections every day, and we also need to be protected. So I'm imploring not just the healthcare workers to protect themselves and to use the equipment, but also the facilities should provide and the government should support.
Okay, so let me come to Dr. Ketude as we wrap up gradually. What do you think we have not done in trying to prepare for this outbreak already in Uganda and Democratic Republic of Congo? What do you think we have not done that we need to do?
Yes, in terms of what we have not done, I can say that virtually we have touched almost everything, but we just need to strengthen them, especially in the area of RCC, risk communication and community engagement.
That's what I was waiting for. Because honestly, there are many people who are still not aware that there's this outbreak in Uganda, and there's a way we pass our message. Don't you think that the ministry should take frantic effort to engage the media more? Because whether you like it or not, most people listen to their radio, people have their phones, and this information should be on the red alert.
Yeah, thank you.
You wake up, you carry your phone, whether it's a sponsored ad, it comes blinking red, and you have to pay attention. And you'll be like, okay, so what is this about? And you see that Ebola is in DR Congo, Ebola is in Uganda. Keep yourself safe, protect your family.
Yeah.
If you see a case, you know, this, if you see this,
travel restrictions to these countries.
We're not doing well in that area.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think for us in Oyo State, let me talk about Oyo State before national. For us in Oyo State, I told you that Honorable Commissioner gave a directive that we should immediately constitute technical working, group for Ebola, where we have all the ministries, MDAs, Ministry of Information, is there because of dissemination of information related to Ebola. Then apart from that, we have World Development Committee, part of that TWG. What is their function? Their function is because they have their members across all the 3 local government. We have one chairman, we have local government chairman. So we have gone to where they normally have their state meeting. I've been there particularly physically, and we have told them the information that they're supposed to take down to the grassroots. That's number. Then again, in that meeting, we have people from Portet. We have their state coordinator here. I've forgotten her name now. He's a medical doctor, together with us in that meeting. Message to take to our borders area. We have immigration officer in that meeting too. So helping us for screening of those that are coming into Oyo State. Yeah, both from the official borders and non-official. We still have non-official borders, which actually we have alerted the communities around those areas.
Our time is fast spent.
Okay.
I want to say categorically that there's need.
There's need. There is no doubt. I said that initially.
We have not done that part, and it's glaring.
No. We are doing it. I said that we want to. Yes, we are doing that exactly. Yes, that's what we are telling you. We are doing it. Yes.
All right. On this note, we want to say a big thank you to you, Dr. Akintunde Babatunde, Director of Public Health for your State Ministry of Health. It's been a great time having you on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for your resource, your energy, and for your views on some of these issues. We appreciate you sincerely.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Eniola Cadmos, Associate Professor, Community Medicine, Consultant Community and Genetic Physician, the University College Hospital. Thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you for your words, the way you've been able to...
Your input, and of course, letting us all understand how Ebola works.
We appreciate you sincerely. We'll go on this break, and when we come back, I'll be serving you with a global update. Stay with us, don't go away.
It's another edition of Global Update on Saturday Special. BCOS Television, Eliakede Rita Bashon, right here in Ibadan. My name is Bimbo Akombi. 35 people have been killed after gunmen struck Niger's largest airport on Thursday, officials say, the second attack in less than 5 months. Residents in the predominantly Muslim country told the press they had just finished their morning prayers when explosions and gunshot sounds rang out from the Uli Amani International Airport located in the capital city, Niamey. Niger's defense ministry said the fatalities comprised 22 assailants, 11 soldiers, and 2 civilians. On Thursday evening, Al-Qaeda affiliate Jama Nusrat al-Islam, while Muslimin, said it had carried out the attacks. Niger has been fighting an Islamist insurgency for a decade, and in January, an organization linked to the Islamic State group claimed responsibility for an attack on the same airport. Thursday's violence settled by mid-morning, and security forces have since launched a manhunt for any remaining attacker. Authorities said alongside the 22 attackers that were killed, another 4 were wounded. They added that 20 suspects had been arrested. A large cache of weapons, including RPG-7 launchers, AK-47 Kalashnikov rifles, explosives, grenades, communication equipment, and thousands of rounds of ammunition were also reportedly seized. Afghanistan has launched airstrikes on what it called hideouts used by armed groups and hostile intelligence circles inside Pakistan, Kabul, has announced. The strikes reported on Friday by Afghanistan's defense ministry were launched the previous day. The incident is the latest threat to the fragile ceasefire between the neighbors. Hostilities have broken out several times over recent months, killing hundreds of people, and mediators led by China who have so far failed to secure an agreement for a settled peace. The hideouts, located in Pakistan's Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa provinces, both of which share a border with Afghanistan, were targeted by the Air Force on Thursday night, Afghanistan's defense ministry said in a social media post. The ministry said that the bases had been allegedly used in cooperation with certain hostile intelligence circles to plan and organize attacks against Afghanistan, presumably referring to Pakistan intelligence. Afghanistan has refuted all accusations. Kabul did not specify how the attack, the first major offensive action claimed by Kabul in months, was carried out. In the meantime, planned talks in Switzerland between the United States and Iran to discuss the technical terms of their ceasefire deal have been postponed. The Swiss Foreign Ministry confirmed early on Friday that the talks, which were scheduled to take place in Bogdenstock, would not go ahead. The postponement has raised fears that the ceasefire deal signed by the US and Iran earlier this week could already unwind. Reports suggest that Iran has delayed sending its delegation to discuss the technical issues linked to the Memorandum of Understanding (MOU) on a ceasefire digitally signed by the two countries on Wednesday due to Israel's ongoing military campaign in Lebanon. Israeli attacks overnight and into Friday have reportedly killed at least 18 people in southern Lebanon, with Iran-linked Hezbollah reporting intense fighting. Iran, which has recently sensed Trump's enthusiasm to agree an end to a war increasingly unpopular in the US, has responded bullishly, declaring that Tehran had reservations even while nodding to the plan. Its chief negotiator Mohammed Baghdadlibav said on Friday that any talks will remain bound by Tehran's red lines. A halt to Israel's attacks on Lebanon was one of Tehran's key demands in negotiations.
Dialogue is needed. As part of the negotiation that will take place post the signing of the MOU, in order to re-establish trust between both sides, in order to find a solution to the fact that threat perception has changed in the region after this war.
Concerns over the stability of the deal saw mediators, including Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, agree to gather for talks in the Egyptian city of Al Ain on Sunday, Cairo and Islamabad said. The United States military has killed at least 3 people in a strike on a boat in the Eastern Pacific Ocean that it alleged was smuggling drugs. The attack carried out on Thursday was the latest in a series of strikes on vessels close to the U.S. The Trump administration says it is cracking down on drug traffickers. According to Washington, the attack targeted a ship that was carrying unidentified narcotics from Latin America to the United States. The U.S. Southern Command said in a social media post that it had conducted a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel operated by designated terrorist organizations. An unclassified video attached to the statement appeared to show the moment a speeding boat was struck by a missile and went up in flames. At least 211 people have now been killed in such strikes in the Pacific, and U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed that the country is in armed conflict with drug cartels in Latin America and that his administration is seeking to stem the flow of drugs. However, his administration has not offered concrete evidence connecting all those killed with drug trafficking, with some accusing the U.S. of killing local fishermen with unknown links to cartels. And finally, at least 18 people have been killed in southern Lebanon following a series of Israeli airstrikes overnight, the country's health ministry has said, while the Israeli military says 4 of its soldiers were also killed. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, said it had struck 80 targets linked to the Iran-backed armed group Hezbollah and killed dozens of its members. It comes a day after the US and Iran signed a deal aimed at ending the conflict in the Middle East, including a permanent cessation of hostilities in Lebanon. Both Israel and Hezbollah have carried out strikes against each other since the agreement was announced, raising questions about the future of the truce between the US and Iran. The US-Iran deal calls for an end to hostilities on all fronts and for Lebanon's territorial integrity and sovereignty to be respected. However, Israel has said it has no intention of withdrawing its forces from Lebanon and has insisted that its conflict with Hezbollah is separate from the war on Iran. Lebanon's state news agency described the overnight bombardment across the Nabatea district of southern Lebanon on Thursday as one of the most intense of the war, with at least 18 killed, 33 injured, and several buildings hit. And that will be all on today's edition of Dubai Update on Saturday Special. My name is Bimbo Akambi. Enjoy your weekend.
What an interesting time it has been on the program this morning. Thank you very much for staying with us. We hope you take your health seriously. If you notice anything whatsoever, no matter how little the symptom is, please visit your hospital, see your doctor for proper diagnosis, and of course, do not self-medicate. I am Oluwa Fumbi Bello saying, have a great weekend.
Remember that health is wealth.